Welcome on our third session about cybersecurity. We are preparing ourselves for SC-100 exam, which is Azure Cybersecurity Architect Exam. Exam is still on beta, but I believe it will be soon released. So third session is about identity. So we would like to touch topics around how to design identity security strategy today. Meetings are led by me and Maciek, who is also on the call. So Maciek, say hello.
Hello.
So previous session was led by Maciek, and the next one will be led also by him. So please remember to join us on next Thursday. And I think we can start. So today we'll be talking about things around identity in Azure and Microsoft technologies. So the first thing is that this is hard, still hard. We'll try to touch lots of points, but if you don't have deep knowledge around something, I will advise you to go deeper and search and prepare maybe for some previous exams which are like that you should take before this architect exam. However, we would like to talk about strategy to access Azure resources today, extend zero trust talk that we already touched a little bit, but in the scope of for identity. We'll talk about securing privileged access and how to do it. What are the best things we can start doing to be better with people who has very privileged accounts and can do everything. We will also join our Azure Active Directory with other things. So that will be a topic around Azure B2C, which is business to customers, and B2B, which is business to business. That will be a little bit explanation also for on-premises environment. And how to check it. So privileged identity management and defender for identity. That will be two things that we want to go and understand. So let's start with basics. So there will be like lots of names around Active Directory name. Let's start that lots of these names are related to each other and can be a little bit mixed. First basic thing is Active Directory. Active Directory is directory for identities on Windows domain on-premises environment. So this is the tool which is installed on servers. We can connect Active Directory on premises with Azure Active Directory, which is cloud Azure-based identity provider. It integrates with all of this, so happy for us. We also can have two ways to communicate with our business partners. So we can grab accounts from other Active Directory by Azure Active Directory B2B Direct Connect. So this is mutual relationship. We should trust each other. But we also can, this is more popular thing, we can invite guests for our Azure Active Directory B2B collaboration space. So two ways. And the last one, Azure Active Directory B2C, which is business to customers. So how we can secure our web applications mostly. So we will start with Azure Active Directory, and we'll extend this a little bit to other spaces as well. So before going to that, I would like to show you Azure Active Directory a little bit. So when you have your Azure portal, Azure subscription, Azure World, you probably are logged in as some kind of user. You can be with the same account, you can be part of multiple tenants, and you can also manage multiple tenants. So here, if you want to check different directories. You have first different accounts that you are being able to access, and also in the specific account you can have multiple Active Azure Active Directories, as you can see here. You can switch easily between them. So right now I'm on this Azure Active Directory, and if I will search for Azure Active Directory space, I will be jumped also to this one. To change it, we need to go through switch, which I just showed you. And this is very huge space, so I will encourage you to go deeper with all of this. But probably the most important thing you would like to know is we can add users, and we can add normal users as members, or we can add guest users. We can invite them via email, we can add them manually. So simple, we are creating user, we type, for example, some name, and we have option to first to introduce to Azure Active Directory our domain and join it, but we also have as default on Microsoft.com domain, which is which our name of Azure Active Directory is added before that, and we can create users there. We can use auto-generated passwords. We can check them. We can also provide our passwords by ourselves, and we may add our users to some groups like this one, and also for some roles and giving them some permissions. There is a huge list of built-in roles that you may be able to go and check by yourself. So that's how the process looks like. We can also block possibility for signing in, and this is pretty straightforward. With inviting user, we just typing email address, and we are sending email with invitation, and the user can accept it or deny it. If the user accepts it, he or she is just added to our Active Directory as guest account. So, going back to basics, with identity word, we have thing which is called AAA. AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accountability, which is three main factors for identity access. So these are separate steps. Usually people mix these two together as one thing which is happening, that we are signing in and we are logged in. However, there are two physical steps. Authentication, which is first step, is answering question, who am I? And we need to prove that we are the person who we claim we are. Usually it doesn't mean that we are physically this person. We are just, the process is to claim that I am Agnieszka, the same Agnieszka I just, for example, created account, or the account was created for me. Second step is about, if I am who am I, what I can do. So I want to do things that I'm authorized for. It's mostly related with permissions. And third thing, accountability. So what I have done? What I have done is a question that other people can check what I was doing with my account. So let's start with the first one, which is authentication. And probably if you are using Azure Microsoft technologies, you saw that there is usually multiple ways to authenticate yourself. There are many things. Usually we use passwords, but some of you probably used SMS before or voice messages. You used maybe a Microsoft Authentication app or Windows Hello for Business. Please be aware that as primary way of authenticating, only some of these are allowed. And for example, voice cannot be used as first choice. However, as secondary choice, you can use most of this. And most of this. And for example, Windows Hello for Business stands for, can be used as secondary choice with multi-factor authentication, MFA. And Microsoft Authentication app may stand also with MFA and SSPR, which stands for, I just want to show you, but it's not happening. Sorry. Self-service password reset. So when you are choosing proper authentication method, you need to remember what is allowed, what it's not, and what possibilities you have. Because, for example, with FIDO2 keys, you don't have possibility for self-reset passwords. So MFA, I just said it's multi-factor authentication, but what it means that we are asking our person who wants to authenticate with our Azure Active Directory to double check themselves. And there are three main things that we need to remember using MFA. First, that we should enable MFA for all users and login methods if that's possible. That's the best security thing we can do with MFA. However, sometimes it's not possible. It's also pretty easy. We can use Azure Active Directory security defaults, and there are options for enabling it for everybody. But that can be very tricky for people who are not prepared for that. When we enable this, there will be a pop-up saying that you need to provide additional requirements are set on Azure Active Directory, and you need to provide additional details, like, for example, provide phone number. We can also enable MFA with Azure Active Directory multi-factor authentication and Azure multi-factor authentication server. And this is the most popular method. It's used by most of organization. It enables to use MFA with specific group of accounts and a specific group of people. And we can also enable MFA with conditional access policies. So when something will happen, we want to force our users to use MFA. And this also can be based on some risk-based evaluation. So we have risk-based conditional access policies that can be used also in this case. So that will help detect some vulnerabilities and configure automated responses for suspicion actions, and also investigate these incidents and take actions to resolve them. With the second thing, which can be secondary way of authenticating ourselves, it's self-service password reset. We usually don't want to enforce this for everybody, and we usually want to understand how this works on our side, on our organization. So from the strategy that we should take as first step is just to enable it and monitor how it's used, or if it's used at all. And for that, we can use Azure Active Directory Password Reset Registration Activity Report. And if that's successful on our cloud resources, we should extend all of this to also Active Directory on our on-premises environment. So what we're trying to achieve is to have one place when we can manage our identities and not having multiple places with multiple routes. So what we can do, we can enforce this cloud-based password policies also to Active Directory itself. So having this in mind, we are coming to Zero Trust. And Zero Trust has something called access control strategy. which helps us understand how this should work to grab us the feeling that we are just verify everything we could. We can split this in 3 steps. First step is we are grabbing all signals that we can to make some informed decisions. So is somebody trying to log in? So do they normally work here, or maybe they work from weird location? Maybe they are using different device that they are not supposed to use. Maybe something completely different is happening, like they are using infected device or not patched, or there are like multiple things that Microsoft is grabbing via different places that I will show you a little bit later. So when we have the signals, we need to create a decision. So decision is based on some policies and risk. So we take all signals that we can get, we try to understand them, which is usually done by machine learning, and then have a clear decision what we are going to do. And with this decision, we are going to last step, which is enforcement of policy across resources. So we are getting the access that we are not always applied for, but that we were granted. Because what we are applying for and what we have granted, usually it's the same, but sometimes from time to time we can lower our expectations and limit a little bit access that user is asking for. So how to achieve this? Conditional access that we mentioned a little bit before. So first step was grabbing signals. Usually we are grabbing signals like user or group membership, IP location information, like what kind of device, what state of device, what kind of application, and real-time and calculated risk detection. That's the most popular, but you can also have GPRS signals as well if user has this enabled on their phone, and we have also this enabled in conditional policies. So having all of the signals, we can make a decision. So make decision is usually allow or block access, or ask for extra details. For example, we can require multi-factor authentication. We can allow access, but with limited scope. We can say, okay, but you need to first reset your password with MFA. So all of this is grabbing us more, we are getting more secure than just using, for example, network perimeter, when we are just saying, okay, you are granted access or you were denied and there is nothing you can do with that. We can ask for extra things or limit scope of the access that user is granted. So what are the best practices for conditional access? First thing, and I advise everybody this, especially when you will be trying to use conditional access, just set up some emergency access accounts, not to block yourself with access. That's the first thing. And second thing, if your high privilege account will be compromised, probably you should have another one to be able to use to get access to your space. First, don't force this conditional access to everybody, rather set up report-only mode that will say which accounts were going through conditional access policy and how it was related. Maybe that can be also a thing that we need to understand before turning it on. We don't want to have like numbers of policies. Usually with networking, we have lots of thousands of blocking ports or like thousands of rules. We don't want to have the same thing here. That should be easily maintainable. Rules should be clear and there should be like tons of them. and it should apply everywhere, especially to every application. And if you are not expecting some weird location because you are working from concrete places, just block countries that you're not expecting access. So let's try to understand how this works. Okay, so here we have our Active Directory, and most of these features, that's a big thing, you can use when you have premium account. It depends, premium 1 or and premium 2 for the features, but usually you need premium to go there. So conditional access enables us to create policies based of different things. You can use users, specify some groups of users, or specific users or role, or like type like guest or external users. You can provide which cloud or actions it applies for, what conditions needs to be met for the policy to be applied, and do you want to grant or block access, and with what, if you want to grant, do you want to use anything from this list that we were talking about. So before doing that, I will show you a user. Here we have a user. User is called Cybersecurity. This user is guest account, user type guest account, and generally it's just empty user. We'll try to use this user and logged into Azure portal. So that's our user. Our auto-generated password that I'm typing in because I didn't copy it, so that will take some time. So when when our password was updated, or we had hard reset from our administrator, or the account is brand new, we will always be asked for changing our password. So the password cannot be so easy. So first, there are built-in things in Azure Active Directory that disables so easy passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But you also can have a list of your own passwords that won't be accepted here. So let's use a little bit more complicated one. And you can see that we are successfully logged in. So this account is kind of working. I'm singing out, and let's try to use our conditional access feature. So going back to Active Directory, security, conditional access, we are creating new policy. Let's have a policy that for our user cybersecurity, we just want for everything, including Azure portal. We can add multiple things, but for this person, we want to grant access, but require multi-factor authentication. So as you can see, in enable policy, we have report only, so that will grab only reports. But for now, I will just turn it on to show you how it works. Yeah, probably worth adding some name. Okay, so the policy is created. Sometimes it takes some time for this policy to be applied. So let's try to use it, but it can be a thing that we need to wait for a second. One thing, usually if the account is new and we will enable this MFA in conditional access, user will be asked to provide additional details like phone number or authentication app, etc. I already did it for this user for you not to see my phone number and other magical stuff. So that won't be popped up. We should just have a pop-up to grab a text from what I should get from my phone, and I still didn't get it, and type it here. Hopefully I get it. Yeah, I got it. So sorry not to show all process, but it's pretty easy. So I don't believe there be something easy. So MFA here enables. So when I will log it out, that will be again working the same way. We can also block access, and we can also block access on different things, like for example named locations. So we can provide a list of locations, like say I don't know, Armenia. Here. So we can create a location that we can use in conditional access when we want to make a decision based on location, for example. Yeah, I think it's all about conditional access that I wanted to show you. So let's go back to presentation. So it's fine if we are working with conditional access with Azure Active Directory and Azure resources. But the question was raised, okay, so how we can use conditional access? How can we use different things with our legacy web applications? And the answer is Azure Active Directory App Proxy. This feature provides secure remote access to on-premises web applications. It works this way that first user tries to reach application and it's asked via Azure Active Directory to sign in. When it's signed in, its token is sent, and the token is used by application proxy service, which does its magic. Retrieves user principal name and security principal name, and push this token into application proxy connector. Application proxy connector, if has additional things, reach Active Directory to check them, and then sends request to on-premises application, which is successful. If everything is successful, everything goes back to the user. So this is quite beautiful picture from Microsoft reference architectures, security architectures. So everything I told you, we want to grab this in this one picture. I will jump to this presentation that I downloaded from Microsoft Docs site about Microsoft Cybersecurity Reference Architectures, because it's pretty nice that we can go step by step. So I told you that there are 3 steps: signal step, decision step, and enforcement step. So we have Azure Active Directory and different type of Active Directories that I mentioned before, and we want to grab signals as a first step. So we can grab signals about the user, about risk that we are grabbing from the user. User risk is calculated by Azure Active Directory. It's calculated also by Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps and Defender for Identity together. And all of this can be pushed to Azure Active Directory Identity Protection. This is the place that you can grab all details and all signals that that are coming through. So this is first thing. Second thing is like if we are using multi-factor authentication, that should be also added to conditional access to calculate risk. It's done by machine learning, so usually it improves a little bit. So except user risk, we can also go up. Sorry. Okay. So we can also assess device risk. So first we are asking a question, is it our device from our company, from our organization? Have we have this in our Active Directory? If not, it's fine. But we also want to check other things like, is this device compliant? So all patches, for example, we have policy that all users that are connecting from device needs to be patched or not having some risks around security. So this is checked, and when it all okay, so all of the signals are evaluated here. So with network, we can grant access or deny access. With identity, we can ask for extra details. So we can go back and request MFA. We can, sorry, I'm not sure what's wrong with this. Okay, so we can also set, I think your password is taken. I think something wrong with your password, so you can access our resources. But probably you should first reset your password, and we can add self-service password reset also to conditional policies. So having all of this, we are getting access to all the things that we are asking for, like applications, multi-cloud, documents, apps, and also via yep, so let's go this way. So, and also to our legacy apps via Azure Active Directory App Proxy. Okay. Okay. So we are done with authentication right now. Second step, authorization. With authorization, we have two types of authorization: roles-based authorization and resource-based authorization. Resource-based authorization authorize action based on particular resource. Role-based authorization authorize an action based on the role, which is set of permissions. So we have in Azure built-in roles, and we should use them if we can. So if we cannot and the custom role is needed, we can create one, but we should always start with actions that have at least privileges. So granting the minimal access that is required to perform some action. And if we have segmentation strategy that we talk on first meeting, we should assign permissions with scope. So when we have all of this, we are getting access token. Access token, when access token is requested, we are coming through lots of these things, like first, is user assigned or no assignment is required. If we have it, we are checking if there are any conditional access policies. Then we are checking, okay, block conditions, if they are satisfied to get us through. Yep. If we have grant permissions, grant conditions, do we have everything to go through? And if yes, we just apply controls, we are getting what we are authorized for, and we are issued the access token. So with role-based access control in Azure, we can we have three basic role-based roles. Sorry. So we have owner role, contributor role, and reader role. We can have per resource different roles as well. For example, like data reader, or we can build custom roles as well. And all of these roles we can assign to different scopes, starting with management group, then subscription resource group, and specific resources. It's worth to remember that for management group, we have limit of 500 assignments, and for subscription, we have limit of 2,000 assignments as well. So sometimes if we are using not only assigning people or roles, but we are using managed identities for assigning our application, it's worth to remember this. Reader role is just for people who are observing things. Owner role is for people who administer this, and contributor role and resource specific role are for people who are doing something with resource usually. So we shouldn't add specific access for specific resources. Probably we should focus on resource group subscriptions and management groups. However, we need to remember how to apply least privilege access based on requirements and what our users' applications needs. So with role-based access strategy, we should segregate duties within our team. So grant only the amount of access that we really need and people really need. However, we need to remember our security teams who need to access all resources to assess and remediate risk, and also to be able to do something with them. And the last thing is Microsoft Defender for Cloud, who needs to, if we want to use it to assess our security, we need to grant it a role for security roles to operate. So what I want to show you is usually we have problem to remember who was added where. And okay, we can go to Azure Active Directory and use in security. Okay. Okay, I'm looking for access access reviews. Okay, give me a second. I just lost it. So we have different things that are working here. Okay, I didn't lost it. I just blocked myself. That's good, because to have access reviews, you need to have proper permissions. So I will use another account, or just show you first another account. So here we have privileged role administrator, and privileged role administrator has assigned role, which is privileged role administrator role. And when we logged in as not our cybersecurity, but with our privileged access administrator role, okay. And when we go I'm very unhappy with that, to be honest. Let's skip this for a second, maybe, and we'll go back then if we have time on the end of the session. Okay, least privilege. What we talked, we need to grant the minimum access that user needs. Why? It reduces risk of damage when identity is stolen. And usually we think it's about permissions. It's not only about permissions, it's also about how much time the user has this more advanced access. So how we minimize user access? So we have lower scope. First, we can use just-in-time access. We can use also just enough access. And we have also risk-based adaptive policies and data protection. What I want to show you is privileged identity management. So privileged identity management enables just-in-time access to Azure Active Directory and other resources. And it also can be time-bound. Having our account that I logged in as this one, we can go to Azure Active Directory Privilege Privilege Identity Management, and we can use Azure Active Directory roles. And we have different options. First, we can assign some possibility for other users to elevate permissions by themselves. We can also activate role and approve request and audit what happened. So let's go and add new assignment. So, for example, I want to grab, let's say, directory readers role for specific member. Let's say it will be our cybersecurity. So I'm setting when this policy can apply. So when the user, cybersecurity user, can use this. So maximum it's 3 months. When I assign this and log a signal and go to cybersecurity account, first, we should still have MFA turned on. So probably I will be asked again to go to my phone and find a code to put here. Okay, so we are here. What we can do? We can go to Azure Active Directory Privilege Identity Management. We can go to the same page and activate my role. So right now we created directory readers. Before that, I created also for the same user application developer. How it works? I click activate for what we just created, and I have pop-up to set how much time I need. Let's say from now, I need just an hour, and I'm forced to put a reason why. So like, let's say testing, and I click activate. So there is 3 stages that are happening right now. First, we are processing request, validating if that was successful, and if that was successfully completed, I have automatic refresh, and I just got access. I don't need to log out and log in again, as we are used to it. I just got this access, and I can do whatever I want to do right now with this access. And this access will be taken out from me when the time will pass. So this is very useful, especially for very privileged accounts that, for example, let's assume that I have access to production. Usually I'm just going there and reading things, but from time to time, I just need to update something or modify. So I don't need to have access to delete and change resources all the time. I just need to have usually read access, but I need to have immediate access to elevate my permissions to be able to do what I need to do at the moment. We also, with this privilege identity management, can have approval step to activate privilege roles. We can enforce multi-factor authentication. And we, as you saw, we can make an audit and check who did what and why. And why it's important as well, because this reason is mandatory. So in audit, we can also review this. So with privileged accounts, so accounts that have the most power to do harm in our Azure Active Directory, but also on-premises environment, we want to take a special care there. So first, we need to know, to be honest, what accounts we have, who has accounts which we can name as highly privileged. Then, if we know who has privileged accounts, we need to start to monitoring them, controlling and checking how they are used. As best practices, they should use manage Azure Active Directory accounts with at least MFA or just being passwordless. And one of the biggest thing, which is usually not happening, is to create separate accounts for administrative tasks and normal work. Like we shouldn't have access from the same account, for example, to checking email and removing things from production or virtual machines. And going deeper with this thought, with this very important business critical things, we administrator accounts should have also separate workstations. So there will be no physical way that some malicious act taken from outside is going straight to production. To lower the exposure, we can use just-in-time access that I showed you, and we should also define at least 2 emergency access accounts. So if one account will be compromised, we can always have a second account that we can grab and use to get back to our space and to our organization. When somebody is leaving organization, we should the provision accounts, especially for administrative account with administrative privileges. And we should have a process that helps us when something went wrong. There are also 2 things, like we should mitigate the most frequently used attack techniques. And even sometimes, like for administrative accounts, the high privileged access accounts, it's worth to do in intervals some trying to hack them and check what we can improve to help us understand what is the risk here. So that was more about cloud and Azure. We can have also on-premises environments, and on-premises environments, similar thing is privileged access management. Privileged access management works in similar manner. So, so we want to have more access, and somebody needs to approve it, and then somebody is running the task. And after some specific interval of time, this access is expiring and we don't have it more. To be able to use privileged access management, we need to have Microsoft Purview, which is grabbing data about data governance and use this as software as a service and for multi-cloud and on-premises. Okay, the last one, now accountability. So some of this I already said, but the most important feature that we can use is identity protection. With identity protection, we have some charts and explanation what happened. So if we have risky users were detected with different type of risk, we have a chart, we can check how it looks like, and we can filter this by range. So if you will go to, let's close this one. If you will go to Azure portal and we'll go to identity protection feature, so it's called Azure AD identity protection. You will get to the same blade, which mine is pretty empty. However, I got one risk user, and you can go and check if that was. Sometimes it's not pretty nice working, so sometimes it shows nothing, but sometimes it shows why this user was risky and what happened. So here is like the all history as with IP addresses and locations about this user that you can grab some understanding around that. And if you decide that this is risky user and the account was compromised, you can always confirm this and remove access from the person. Also with the same space identity protection, we can go and check, we can grab and use alerts. So if some account will be compromised, for example, with high risk level, your administrator or somebody in your organization can get an email with this information about and to take immediate actions. Okay, so stepping aside from AAA, we are going to talk about external identities in Azure Active Directory. So we started with the first page that I briefly showed you, 3 ways to connecting different identities to Azure Active Directory. So first one is Azure Active Directory B2B Direct Connect, when we are trusting different organizations and we understand the risk and we want to work together. We are not grabbing guest accounts to our Active Directory, we are just using different Azure Active Directory accounts. And that's why it's working only with Azure Active Directory. And we can have single sign-on to Microsoft Teams. If we don't trust each other, or we want to have guest accounts from different Azure Active Directory, we are using Azure Active Directory B2B collaboration, which is sending email to a person and person agrees and is granted access. That's why we can have access to most identity providers by protocols, not only Azure Active Directory, and we have single sign-on enabled for Azure Active Directory apps and Microsoft 365. And the last one, which is a little bit different, is Azure Active Directory B2C, business to customers. So this is the special version for, especially for web applications that we want our customers to use some features and provide identity for them. And we can use Azure Active Directory, but we can also use social media and different identity providers. Single sign-on is only for apps and no for Microsoft 365. So this is like briefly how it looks like. So AAD B2B Direct Connect is still in preview. So we are setting trusted connection between these two Active Directories, and this must be confirmed from both sides. So there is not like some external Azure Active Directory organization is joining us. We need to set up this trust between two companies. With Azure Active Directory B2B collaboration, somebody from our organization sends invitation email to other organization, and then we are grabbing this to our organization. We need to remember that we accept policies that are in different organizations to access our Active Directory. So this is the security thing that we need to consider. And with Azure Active Directory B2C, first we can provide with login screen some UI things that will help, will be matching, for example, our application. And we can use many things like social IDs from Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google, Gmail, and other things, and any providers for identity via Authorize. So that's about using different identities. But if we have our own identities, but on-premises environment, with Active Directory, we can use Azure AD Connect. So Azure AD Connect is a thing that can connect our Active Directory with our Azure Active Directory. It can do it on multiple ways. So I will encourage you to grab some understanding by your own. However, it's worth to know that passwords can be done synchronized in two ways or used two ways. First, we have password hash synchronization. So we are grabbing password from on-premises Active Directory. We are making hash, which is not copy-pasting the same hash from Active Directory. And this new hash is provided in Azure Active Directory. So when user logs into Azure, for example, via Azure Active Directory, the password is checked on Azure Active Directory. On other side, we have also pass-through authentication, which is just grabbing this information from Active Directory. And it's quite important to remember about this when we are putting the synchronization between Active Directory and Azure Active Directory, because this may change the behavior of how we authenticate people in our organization space. The last thing, Microsoft Defender for Identity. Microsoft Defender for Identity grabs different signals to make some decisions. We a little bit touched this on this user access page from Microsoft reference as architectures. So it works in the way that it grabs, it sets sensors, and from the sensors grabs signals and provides it to Microsoft Defender for Identity. And Microsoft Defender for Identity can grab lots of information from it, pass it through Microsoft Cloud App Security, which connects to different things. For example, Microsoft 365 Defender or Azure Sentinel that Maciek was talking about on the last session. And we can use it to help us understand what's going on in our identity, also on on-premises environments. So in Defender for Identity, we have monitoring what happened. So that, for example, users were added to some specific groups. We can have also some protection techniques and improvements and the status of them. So, for example, here you see that urgency for this improvement is high, that it's still not resolved. And what is good with Defender for Identity, it's checks suspicious activities and try to do something with them. So it prevents cyber attacks from identity perspective. So before going to summary, I will try to find access review or the one that I missed because it's pretty nice to see it. I was pretty sure that this is somewhere in this huge amount of spaces here. I remember that this can be accessed from many places, and that's the biggest problem that I have right now. one thing when I'm like clicking madly here. So if we connect Azure Active Directory with Defender for identity, that needs some setup. We can have also Microsoft Secure Score for identity, which is similar that Maciek showed you from Microsoft Defender for cloud, for example. Identity protection. Yeah, I'm not going to find it, unfortunately, right now. So we were talking today about identity, which is huge, and I just touch multiple things on very low level, not going much in details. With this, please remember, like, identity is new perimeter, so it gives us more possibilities than just network. And to make it work, we need to have the same rules everywhere. So if you are joining anything, we need to remember about this. We need to remember that the better thing is having one central point for identity rather than having multiple rules and multiple things across on-premises environments. And thank you, Alexander. I will find it in a second. So that's the thing. And it's worth to turning conditional access and MFA. And we need to remember about privileged accounts and what we can do with them. For example, using just-in-time access, and for sure least privileges that we need to. And what is important is to remember about when to use Azure Active Directory B2B, B2C, when to use Azure Active Directory Connect, and how this all copes together. So as I fortunately have good people on the call, I will go and grab, so this is like in identity, yes, it's like identity governance, that's correct. Thank you, Alexander. That's the thing I was looking. So identity governance, what is identity governance? So how we should approach this problem that we have many people who wants to do many things, and they usually don't need full access for everybody. So identity governance is all about this. One of the things here is access review. And with access review, I see nothing because I'm not in my privileged account, but I can easily, hopefully, switch to the account that has these privileges, hopefully. Or I just messed something again. Or messed. Identity governance, access reviews. Okay. So account doesn't matter here, both probably has access. So with access review, we want to understand if every user who is in some Azure Active Directory group should be in this group and have this access. So, for example, we want to check a group. I have only one group. I don't have access from this account, but I probably have access here. Yep. So I have access to this group, and I can select who should review this. Like, for sure, you might have some business person who knows who is working with some features, or somebody. So I can say, for example, it's group owner, and there are also fallback reviews if group owner is not available, for example. And how many times I want to do it. I want to do it, for example, I don't know, monthly. And I have 3 days to do this, and I just never want to add it. So when I will go here and set all things, the person who is group owner will get every month an email to check every person in this group and has 3 days for that. So if the person won't respond, we can, for example, remove access or approve access or do some recommendations also. So, for example, we want to remove access, and for guest users, we want to remove them or block them. And that's probably all. So if I will hit review and create, every month somebody will get an email to go with a link to go to specific Azure Active Directory group. Let's say to this group and check who is here. So here is one person, for example. Not even a person, to be honest. Okay. So I believe that's all for today. How this maps with our exam. So you can expect having some setup for organization and understand what kind of collaboration we want to use, if it's B2B or, for example, B2C. You can have questions around role-based access strategies. You can have questions around all authentication methods and how to use them, how they cope together. So probably you can have also questions about Azure Active Directory Connect, so this feature to connect Azure Active Directory with Active Directory, and passwords on specific case. So this is, as I told previously, it's maps with other things as well. So other things that we introduced on first session and second session, now it's third, and we'll have also 6 more sessions that are all maps together with single questions on the exam that maps multiple things and checks multiple things with one setup. So before questions, next Thursday, Maciek will do a session about designing a regulatory compliance strategy. Maciek, would you like to say something about the session?
Oh, I think we will talk a lot about data, where we store data, how we proceed with data, and how it is matched to the compliance. So I think that's all.
Okay, so meet us next Thursday. Maciek will be talking about lots of interesting stuff and how this copes together. And question time. I'm not sure, Maciek, have you saw any questions on the chat that we should answer?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. Steve.
Hello. Going back to near the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about putting in controls around if I'm a user and you expect me to log in the UK, but you see me logging in from a random country, and you put in something to block that login from another country, would I still, being the legitimate user, be able to log in from the UK?
Yes, if that what you're saying you will translate is nicely for conditional access policies, that's true. You can have, for example, access that from UK you cannot log in and your access is blocked, but if you are in another country, you may use MFA to log in. So yes, that's correct.
Cool, thank you.